Welcome back to Just Blazor Programming. I hope you didn't wait too long. And today we'll be focusing on another Blazor package, another Blazor library called Blazorise that you can add to your Blazor projects in order to give it some nice flaring colors. So you're not just the last time I talked about a Blazor package was MudBlazor, I believe. So today we're going to be discussing one of its competitors, another UI library, another option that you can use for your packages. However, I do have some things to say about it because I have tested it out on my end, and I want to bring it up just in case, so you know what you're getting into in case you decide to implement this into your project. So let's begin. So the first thing you have to do is go to Blazorise.com, and then it'll give you, everything that MudBlazor had. MudBlazor has all the, MudBlazor has all the documentation all on the website, and so does this in very similar fashion. So, it gives you the, we bring all this stuff, we're all this, we are on our community, blah, 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 all the good stuff I expect from a decently made package, and that has a very nice, front-end website. So what I really care about, obviously, is documentation. So in this case, I've actually went through the trouble of building out some of these templates so that we don't have to watch me do them, because it really is a step-by-step process. Or if you did it like I did, the lazy method, you just do a very quick process and then you'll be fine. But I will want to point out some different things that this has that MudBlazor does not have, and also some issues that you might encounter. So in this case, there is some modularity into the kind of CS, the look and feel of your project. So you're not just stuck with Bootstrap like you are with Blazor. You actually have the option of using Material Design or Bootstrap 4 or 5 and Design and Bulma Demo. Now, the only ones I'm going to show you today are going to be Bootstrap 5 and the Material Demo. And lucky for us, they actually have a lot of their components already ready to go in their demos for Blazorise Material Design and for Bootstrap 5. So in this case, it's only a very, for general component use, I only care about some components more than others. Buttons, grids, forms, those kind of things are more important to me than like most other stuff, because those are the things you're going to be using the most. However, there are some things that I did notice within Blazorise that I will bring up to you. But for now, let's just look at these two components side by side. This being the Blazorise demo for Bootstrap 5, and then the Material demo right here. Go to the UI. Yeah, I don't know if you could really tell the difference here. It's not very nice to look at because my screen is very small. But it is, Bootstrap 5 is on this side, and this is the Material Design on this side. And you could do, check the differences out. Now, in order to be fair to MudBlazor, I am going to use Material Design as my showing of a demo. So what you need to do in order to actually install MudBlazor, so that'll be the next part here, is you can do one of two things. You can install it manually, or you can install it like I did and get it through a template. So this being like, do you remember MudBlazor when you had to install the MudBlazor like components and packages and stuff? So you can actually make a template of it without going through all the manual stuff. So all I did was install the .NET template here. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll just create another project. Here we go. Create a new project. So when you go through this process of installing it, like all you have to do is really copy paste this to the command line or to your like developer command line that you'll see in the Visual Studio. But once you do all that, you just write Blazorise, and then you'll have your Blazor app. So just like MudBlazor, once you download this framework, you'll have access to it, and you'll have access to many to all the templates here. So let's just create one to see that it actually gives you a little bit more options, a little bit more stuff that you can do before you actually go into the project. Blazorise test project. It's good enough. Next. So as you can see, there's actually a lot more options here, but most of these options are, the actual like look and feel of it. So if you want to change the theme from this primary color, which I think is just blue, to something else. So I got the hex color chart here. So basically, in case you've never seen something like this before, what you could do here is change these colors into something else. Unfortunately, you have to actually look up the chart. It doesn't have like a nice way of doing it here, so I'm just gonna copy paste just the first one, The normal color of this is like light blue or something, like similar to the demos up here, whereas this color. So we're just going to change it green. You could just see it. Also, you could choose your framework, .NET 6, .NET 7, and you can choose what whether you want to use Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly. Unfortunately, just like and I'm gonna do material design. Actually, no, I'm gonna show you material design in a second. So let's just do Bootstrap 5. So what's going to go? So unfortunately, just like MudBlazor, you don't have the option of adding like the identity stuff. So that means that if you decide to go the template route with Blazorise, you will have the same issue that you have with MudBlazor, which is that you will have to, if you are using some sort of identity framework, you're using some third-party package, you have to do it manually after the fact. So keep that in mind if you want to use this as a template, or if you want to add this as a project after the fact, which it does allow you to do. So instead of using instead of going here, you have to go through these steps instead and add it to your project, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to show you the template because, you know, they're both lead to the same result in the end of the day. And let's see, this is the Bootstrap 5 version. And then I'm just going to quickly run it so you can see that the change actually was there. And that this is a Bootstrap 5. But don't worry, you'll see the material design in a moment once this loads. Perfect. So you see the color light shows on that hex color chart appeared up here. And if you go to the pages, you go to simple form, you see this is an example of a Bootstrap 5 form. And it also has a to-do app. Like all of the templates have this. They all have the a page, a simple form, a dashboard that tells you some stuff about it, the form, and then a to-do like little thing in here that you could just that works. So you just ask, you put test, you put add, you have your to-do list here, and it's ready to go. So if you ever need to do one of those to-do list tutorials, you could just do it from here. Or if you want to make a fun to-do list for you could wait for the one I'm trying to create later on. So, you know, this is all functional, so it all works, and I tried it on both the Bootstrap 5 version and the material version. There's no real difference to it. Obviously, the only thing that really changes is the material components and the CSS with some JavaScript in there for the material stuff and for the Bootstrap stuff. So that's the only real difference when you choose one over the other. Otherwise, that you'll get this template essentially, you know, with the sidebar here, the nav bar up here, and then the pages that it allows you to get. So that's it for that. Let's go back to our page here. So when you see this, you see basically everything you have to see. If I go to the general UI stuff, for the materials design, it's not that different from what you'll get from MudBlazor, I believe. It's pretty much the same. It is just material design. Like, it's all there. So what I'm gonna go over now, instead of going over like all the buttons and stuff like these, you've already seen that before, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty simple. So I'm gonna go over some of the differences that you have to keep in mind when you use Blazorise. So that being this, actually, so if I go back here, go to these extensions and components. So your component, these are the components it brings. So I'm just gonna go over this real quickly. These are all the components that it brings normally. So if you download, let's say the normal Blazorise stuff off the bat, like I did with your templates, you added nothing else to it, then you'll have access to all of these components. So including our grids, our buttons. That's not the badge component. Well, our buttons are in there, but some things you have to keep in mind are that this field component. This is what you'll be using within your form. And if you want to validate for a form, it's with validation. This is an example of it. So this is basically what your form's going to be if you need the validation pieces. If not, then I'll show you how to do a data grid way, which another example that they bring, but I have one prepared also to show you some stuff. Let's see what else. Got some drag and drop, date picker. So basically, oh, here's the button, by the way. I'm blind. So basically everything that MudBlazor has, this has as well. And there are some things that I don't like about this, which I'll go over in a moment. But here's probably one of the things that I'm kind of like on the fence about, and it is this piece here. These are extensions, so these do not come with your Blazorise with your initial Blazorise package. If you want to have anything like this autocomplete or this animate chart data grid, which is something else, than the initial one, then you will have to download these packages, whatever the packages is in. So these are all individual packages, and so that means that you have to go in there and download them into your project through NuGet. So if there is something that you need from here that isn't here, then yeah, you will have to download it. Now, some people can say that this is a good thing because that means that you kind of just pick and choose what you want. Some people are like, you know what? It is kind of weird that you have if you're missing something here, you have to go and check the extensions to make sure it has it. But you know, pros and cons for everything. You might not need all of this. You might just need most of this up here. Or if you just want one or two things, then maybe it's better for you that you only have those specific packages. However, it does bring some stuff that MudBlazor does not have, including the animate stuff. So this is what I'm talking about when you see animation, is when it's like just animations for your components and things. I'm sure that a creative person can use the animation library that it has that you could bring into it to make some game or something. I'm sure that's possible. However, I don't think Blazor is a very good framework for making games. However, it would not stop people from doing so, so that's pretty good. Also, the only thing that I'm really kind of like whatever about is this drop down list. So the way I like to do drop downs is through using a list and then having the list be filled up. And you could do it either through a for loop and then having the components or whatever fill up a list within a select box, or in this case, you just have it as a list and then it will be able to read the list essentially. So like that. So it kind of sucks that you don't have this option up here. The closest thing you have up here is this drop down. Let me see if it has an actual scrollable. So here we go. So yeah, so this kind of stuff here that you have to actually like have in here, that's one way of doing it. But I do prefer the drop down list method a little bit more. Because it seems to be more like organized in my opinion, and it's much easier to translate a list in this way, again, in my opinion. So I am kind of sad that this is here, but also this data grid is a little bit different than the one that is in the one that Blazor can bring, the one that MudBlazor brings, because MudBlazor's, if you don't recall, if you go to the MudBlazor documentation real quick, I know this is becoming a video of like comparing the two, but obviously I think comparison in this case is appropriate. But if I go to the data grid for MudBlazor here, it says that it's experimental and should be careful with it, which, you know, I think every JS package or any package that you bring into your project that's third party, including Blazor packages, are subject to change. So that is something that you always have to keep in mind, that whenever you update something that could break your project at some point down the line. So I really don't really get this too much, but I guess they don't feel comfortable enough to say that this is ready to go. But hey, I guess that's what they want to do. But apparently in this case, it is ready to go. So and it also has, you know, video stuff. So in case you want to build like a video related project, QR codes, like there's actually some more things in this that can be brought into your project than MudBlazor has. It can bring in other, you know, types of, and the UI can also change more, where MudBlazor is kind of stuck with the material design and whatever it brings off the bat. With that being said, let's discuss the data grid itself. So here's one of the issues that I find with Blazorise, and that is this here. So in order for me to have, because in this case, I have a material design project, and in this material design project, I imported one of the extensions, the data grid extension that is here. So I followed the steps to import all this so that I'm able to have the same data grid that is within the within this demo or something. So if I went to the data binding stuff, I have this data grid essentially. So it's able to do stuff off the bat, which is nice, basic stuff, nothing too crazy. I like having that because grids are really annoying. And if you have a free data grid off the bat that can resolve a lot of the problems for you, then you don't have to go for one of the more expensive packages like Telerik or Syncfusion or whatever. So in this case, the problem is that there are clashes in naming conventions. So that's why you see this really weird component that has like Blazorise.Datagrid.Datagrid, because in order for me to access the data grid I want to access is coming from the Blazorise.Datagrid package, but there is another component in there that exists that's called data grid as well, and you have to ensure whenever you call upon these components, you have to make sure that the specific component is being called upon and that there is no ambiguity between the names. So that is one of my pet peeves with this particular library, is that there's a lot of naming clashes, including this one. Data grid, I think, is something, a data grid or having a grid is something that I think for web application development is really important, because a lot of the times this is how you're going to present your data or have your users interact with the data, is through a grid of some sort or through a form. And it does suck that the packages here are clashing in their names, so that it becomes a hassle for me to actually use the right data grid, and I have to find out what's going on with this and then figure out what the right naming convention is. In this case, it was Blazorise.Datagrid.Datagrid, and I don't know, I just don't like that. It's unfortunate. It does work though, so if I actually run it, you'll see, you'll see the material design demo essentially along with this data grid extension. And you could do apparently a lot with Blazorise off the bat, which is why I like it. But I do wish that the naming convention I was a little bit tighter. In this case, I implemented the filtering that comes off the bat. So if I move this here, so for Bob, there it is. Stan. What is it, Chris? So this filtering that I'm using is one that comes within the package. It's called the data grid starts with filtering. There's other stuff that you could use as well. Let's see if we could show it off. Contains, ends with equals, blah blah blah. So there's enough stuff here that you could use to get started on like a very basic grid, and it has the ability to allow you to actually make your own filtering method or whatever. So you're not just stuck with it. You can do your own stuff as well, and you don't have to go out of your way for anything here. So yeah, and in this case, I don't think this. Oh, it will. Okay. So in that case, well, that's kind of weird that this was sortable false, but I guess filtering and sortability is different. So let me just show off the sortability. It's talking about doing this. See, Stan and Bob and whatever. You could do that with these. Not this one, strangely enough. I don't know what's happening with this emo one. And okay, now it's back. Cool. Huh. It looks like there might be, oh, never mind. Because I'm having two filters going off at once, or two sorting things going off, so I have to turn off one to do the other one. All right. And then in this case, there's no sort. You can't sort this one because you could explicitly tell what columns you want to sort. That's pretty nice to have as well. It is a little unintuitive that if you have one sorting method like this, you can't sort with another one. Like, what I would like to do is make it, that if I decide to sort with just the last name, that this will just be like forgotten. But that's just a nitpicky thing of mine. It still works. You just, there's some nitpicky things in this package that I have. And yes, you can still access the normal Blazor components in case you're wondering. So I'm actually going to undo an edit form here that I have right here. Also, this is one of the examples they use. I just made sure to have just data here and then made my my objects here. So this is basically their example that they use for the data grid. That all I did was add the hard-coded data, so nothing crazy. And you might think, like, why do I harp on like data grids and stuff so much? And that's because every single job I've had, it was always had to do with a form. It always had to work with data and always had to work with grids of some sort. There was never one that didn't have at least one of these things going. And it's not gonna do anything. The submit button doesn't do anything here. So I just want to show off this form The normal edit form that you get off Blazor still works, and it doesn't like break anything or whatever. And this is the to-do list in case you want to see it of the material design one, which to me looks a lot nicer. I don't know. Some people hate material design. I guess this is something that can't really be helped here, but yeah, that's pretty good. I do like having those tutorials there that are not tutorials, but like pre-made, more complex things there, so that you can see how they are thinking when they make their implementations. This is their layout and stuff, so there's not much more to really see here. Like, it is a little bit different. They did go out of their way to make it much more different than the normal Blazor stuff, but it is I think, as apart from some of the things that I ran into, including the naming clashes and also the forms stuff, because the forms I think is also another thing I really don't like in this package specifically. So show that off. So let me see. Can it show me the? It's just a demo. No, okay. I gotta go to the document here. Go to forms. So that's the thing. If you want to find a form, it's using the field. You could use and then go to validation. And this is one way of writing a form. So I do find this to be very unintuitive, that it's like this, because Blazor has the edit form on top and then everything else within. While in this case, if you want to use validation, you have to use this validation component instead. And I'm not a fan of that because of the convention that it kind of breaks to do this. Instead of having, like, MudBlazor is following it correctly, where it's using the mud form, and then it does everything inside. So that makes sense because of the Blazor convention. In this case, it doesn't make too much sense to me to have the validation outside of it and then have everything else inside. Again, you consider this nitpicky, but it is kind of like, it took me a bit of it did throw me for a loop, because I'm so used to the, you have a form, and then you have your validation, and then you have everything else inside of it. Well, in this case, it's you have your validation, and then everything else goes inside of it. So, and again, that's another thing you have to keep in mind, that there are some differences that are enough to make you like scratch your head if you're used to the Blazor method of stuff. And MudBlazor did not really do that. MudBlazor had some things that that were based in their own conventions, perhaps, but they weren't crazy enough that you couldn't like figure it out. In this case, it goes far enough that it's a little bit more annoying. But again, this isn't unusable. Like, it does actually work, and it's actually has a lot more options than MudBlazor does, if you want that. Also, it made its options modular, so that you don't not forced into using packages you don't want to use. And there's actually quite a few that it does that MudBlazor just simply does not have, including the animate video, and I think QR code. MudBlazor doesn't have that. I'm not sure though, but yeah. Anyways, this is not a bad package to consider, especially if you want to demo stuff there very quickly and you just want to use one of these components here. I think that's pretty good to have, and it does save a lot of time. Like, if I were to build a video component, or to build video, some video project, I probably would want to use something like this and try to get it up and running as fast as possible. Or unless there's some like things I have to deal with, like or some requirements or whatever that stops me from using something like this, I would prefer having the ability to have something that is ready to go, or to at least to what do you call it, to have a minimum viable product using this. That'd be pretty cool. So it's actually not a bad package, and I think it is a decent competitor to MudBlazor if you want to choose that. My final thoughts on Blazorise itself is that I think that if you want to use the material component stuff and there's not too much complications that you want, maybe MudBlazor is better for you, because it's a lot closer to the Blazor conventions you're used to. Well, in this case, there are some things that it does get thrown out, even though it has some extra stuff in here that you might that aren't that different. And the only times I would say that Blazorise might be better to be used is if you are already used to like the Blazorise stuff, or is if there's something here that you want that isn't in MudBlazor, including animate, the video, the QR code, that kind of stuff. Otherwise, then the things you should watch out for are the Blazor naming convention clashes, because I think that's going to be the biggest problem going into this package, is that a lot of these packages, I believe the story behind most of them is that they were piecemeal packages from other people. So then they've used naming conventions that were of their own. Like they had naming conventions that they had for their own packages, and obviously when you combine a bunch of people's different packages together into a Blazorise package, into the Blazorise library as an extension, you might run into this problem where you're actually clashing with them through naming convention because these people didn't really work with each other. At least that is what I believe the story was for the animate library. So yeah, I did some research before coming into this. So in case we figured out why I was having so much time, I was researching some of this stuff. And at the very minimum for the animate stuff, it came from a different GitHub altogether. And then I guess the GitHub, or the guy who made that GitHub made this package, this component thing here that for animation for Blazor, Blazorise was added into it. Like I guess they accepted or something. So I assume that this is gonna be the same story more or less for a lot of these, or for some of these, and that is why you see some naming clashes, which is I think a problem and it's something that you should watch out for. So apart from that, I do think that Blazorise is a decent substitution for MudBlazor. And if you don't like material design, it does give you other options like Ant, Bootstrap 4 and 5, and the other one, Bulma. I never seen that one before myself, but you have a more modular package here with a few caveats. It still works, and I do like the fact that it has a to-do app in it. That's pretty nice. So that's all I really have to say about it. I think it's a really good package overall, and it does seem to work. Just watch out for the things I mentioned, and you can make that work for you in case you need to, MVP something really quickly. So, give it a shot, give it a chance. Anyways, that's my video for today, and I'll see you later. Peace out, guys.